What's up guys, my name is Gazzy B, welcome back to the vlog. Super quick intro, Vegas is finished, very sad to be back. I'm back in London, we're going to be playing in the Vic Casino tonight. Let's jump in and play some cards. There you go, one take, done. Alright guys, apologies for that somewhat depressed intro. As much as I love playing at the Vic in London, it just doesn't have a world famous fountain or an all you can eat buffet. So I'm a bit sad. What it does have tonight, however, is a splashy 1-3 game with a regular straddle to 6, and that's what we're jumping into. Let's get straight into it. Our first hand of note comes 12 minutes into the session. I'm in the cutoff with pocket 10s. Under the gun is raised to £15. He's a young, reggae-looking kid. The straddle is on for this hand. This might look really small to my American brothers and sisters watching, but it's kind of standard in the UK to just raise to 2.5x, or even lower. In the 10-25 game, people raise to £60. Like I say, standard over the side of the pond. I make the call with a couple of loose gooses behind. The small blind makes the call, and we go three ways to our first flop of the night. It is 8-6-3 with 2 clubs. It checks to me. I bet out for £30, and both my opponents make the call. The turn is an annoying flush completing top card pairing 8 of clubs. It checks to me, and I fake tank for about 12 seconds before just checking back. The river is an offsuit ducky, and now the small blind leads out for £60. I'm getting ready to call versus this player. He might have me beat, but probably not. Unfortunately, I don't get the chance to do so as under the gun actually raises to £200. Did not expect that. I of course now fold, and as expected the small blind snap folds as well. Was definitely good versus the small blind there, but not able to make the call. No time to waste because in the very next hand I pick up ace king offsuit in the hijack. I raise it on up to £15. Straddle on again here. The button makes the call, and the reggae looking fella in the straddle makes it £80 to go. Easy 4-bet spot here. He's going to be squeezing really wide with the button in the pot, so I make it £225 to go. We're 1k effective to start the hand. Don't love it, but calling versus a shove if he 5-bet jams, which he does not. Instead, he just calls. We go heads up to the flop with £450 in there. It is Jack 9-3 all black. I decide to see bet here in position, betting a quarter pot and a 4-bet pot. Very standard stuff. I bet out for £120. And after a few seconds, my opponent makes the call. The turn is the 10 of spades. I pick up the nut flush draw, but it's a very connected turn card. Lots of straights, lots of 2 pairs that get there. So instead of betting and maybe getting shoved on and being in a bit of a gross spot, I decide to just check it back. Once again, the river's an offsuit deuce, and after about 15 seconds or so, the straddle shoves all in. Sigh, no 12-second fake tank for me here. I look back longingly at my cards and then let them go. Tough for him to be bluffing there. Maybe like ace queen of clubs or something like that. Off to a bad start here, down about £400, but I've also only got £2,000 with me. I don't have any money on deposit because I was in Vegas for a couple of months, and you're kind of limited to how much you can take out from the casino per day here, so I'm sweating a little bit. I don't want to have my bankroll on the table here. Next up, I've got king 5 of diamonds in the cutoff. A loose non-pro is limped in. I make it £15 to go. This is very loose. It's way too loose. I'll be honest, I'm just a little bit bored. The button is going to make the call, and the limper calls as well. We go 3 ways to the flop. It is 9-6-4 with 2 diamonds. The limper is then going to rip it in for £85. I'm a bit like, what's going on here? I, of course, can't fold. I'm a bit worried about the guy behind me. We're like £900 effective. I decide against like min raising or whatever. I just call, and the guy behind me picks up his cards and shows everyone he's got ace king offsuit. And versus the other player, he announces he's got queen high. Let him have diamonds. He does have diamonds. It runs out 4 on the turn, 10 on the river. He's got queen 7 of diamonds, and I hold to win back a little bit. We've lost with 10s. We've lost with ace king. King 5 of diamonds is the power hand here. Next up, we're back to the strong hands in the form of ace king offsuit in the big blind. The cutoff raises to £15. I put in the raise to £70. He thinks for a few seconds and makes the call. I'm having a bit of fun tonight. I'm being a bit of a loose goose myself. I decide to bet out in the dark here for £50. And the flop comes down 7-5-3. That's not the king 6-4 flush draw that I was hoping for. My opponent thinks for a few seconds and makes the call. The turn is an offsuit queen, and I decide to keep barreling, put lots of pressure on his middling pairs. I bet out for £180, and after a few seconds, he doesn't fold. He makes the call. The river is another queen. It's not the paint I was hoping for. I've come this far. I can still make hands like 5-4 suited and pocket 6s fold, so I bet out for £400. praying that my opponent doesn't call. I don't want to get myself into a pickle with this dart bet on the flop. He does eventually fold his hand. I'm very relieved that he doesn't call me off here. I actually go to show the bluff and then kind of change my mind. It looks a little weird to my opponents at the table, making myself look like a bit of a moron there as I drag in this pot. Next up, I've got 6-5 of hearts. There have been a couple of limps and then a raise to £26. Straddle is back on here. I'm in the small blind with 6-5 of hearts. This is probably not a call, but like I said, I'm a little bored, playing a little too loose tonight. I go ahead and make the call. Both limpers call as well. We go 4 ways to the flop. It is 10-6-3 with 2 diamonds and 1 heart. Now the second limper decides to lead out here for £75. The raiser makes the call and I decide that I've got second pair, backdoor draws. I make the call as well and the first limper calls as well. We go 4 ways to the turn. It's a black 5. That's what we were looking for. The second limper continues to bet out here. He bets out for £175. He's the guy that flatted with ace king pre-flop a second ago when I had the king 5 of diamonds and then folded it on the flop. I don't love it that he's absolutely blasting out here, so I decide to just call. And then the first limper moves all in for £842. I really don't know what's going on here. I've got quite a strong hand, but both these guys look relatively loose. They can have hands like 7-4 and stuff like that, which have me in a world of hurt. Now, the second limper goes deep into the tank. He's not acting here. He's clearly got a very tough decision, which makes my decision a little bit easier here. If he just fake tanks for like 20 seconds and then calls, I might make a ridiculous hero fold, but now I think he's going to have on like king 10 or queen 10 or maybe like a combo draw or something like that. So I decide I'm calling it off versus both players. The second limper does get out of the way, which is good for me. It means there's less players in the pot that can beat me. I decide to make the call. It's £842 or so, and we're running it once here versus the same hand, albeit his is offsuit, so maybe that means I win the pot. Nope. Okay, we're going to chop this one up. The second limper tells us that he had king 3 of diamonds. I was really surprised to hear that. Like I say, he'd been very loose, but not playing that aggressive with those types of hands. If he had called, we'd be chopping up his money, but he did let it go. Still a nice pot coming my way, and now for the night, I am up £100 and 50 pence. That's right. We've got 50 pence chips here in the casino. We normally tip them to the dealers, but the rake is kind of hard to work out in this casino, so they've got to have 50 pence chips, and I believe 25 pence chips as well. I've never seen one at the tables, mind you. All right, moving on now. We've got queen 10 of spades on the button. I raise it on up to £20. There's another tight player in the game. The game is full of tight players and loose players and nothing in between. The tight player in the small blind is going to make it £60 here. The straddle is going to cold call, and I decide to call as well on the button. Of course, we go 3 ways to the flop. Jack 8-4 with 2 spades. Oh my god, straight flush draw. Let's go. The small blind bets out for £180, but he kind of wasn't sure how much he wanted to bet. He was picking them up and putting them down and picking them up again. He eventually settles on £180. The straddle goes deep into the tank. He eventually folds and says after the hand that he had ace king of diamonds. I'm of course not folding. My opponent has bet £180 with about £100 behind, so I announce min raise and put them all in for around 300 total, we'll say. He doesn't snap call. He says, oh boy, oh no, as if he's got himself into a bit of a pickle. He probably is the best hand right now, mind you. As he calls, he says that he needs running spades. Running at once here, the turn gives me more outs, and the river gives me the nuts. I announce nuts. I turn over my hand. My nuts are good. All of a sudden, I am up £600. Absolutely delighted after the tough start. Now, the next hand that we're going to play happens about 5 minutes after the queen 10 of spades hand, and I was taking notes of the queen 10 of spade hand in my phone so I could edit it afterwards, of course, which means that I misplayed this hand because I wasn't paying attention. It's the price I pay for being a vlogger. It happens sometimes. I wasn't really paying attention because I was writing the notes in my hand. Forgive me for this one. So I see the small blind is raised to £30. I'm in the straddle with 10-9 of hearts and putting the re-raise to £100. What I didn't realize was that under the gun had raised and the small blind was putting in a small 3-bet, and I have cold 4-bet with 10-9 of hearts. This is a mistake by me. I wasn't paying attention. I was writing the hand on my phone. What can you do? The small blind is going to make the call. He's a vlog watcher. We go heads up to the flop, which is ace, queen, 8, rainbow. I've got a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw, and the board is supposed to be relatively good for me, so I decide to c-bet for £70. And after a few seconds, my opponent makes the call. The turn is an offsuit 10. My opponent checks to me. I would probably bluff if I I had Jack 10 or King 10, because then I've got 2 pair and set blockers and block the straights, but my 9 doesn't block any straights. I don't think he's the type of player to have Jack 9. So I just check it on back, hoping for some help on the river, but it's another 8. My opponent checks to me. I think he can definitely check some of his ace-x here, so I wave the white flag. I check it on back. He announces queen, and then wants me to turn my hand over if I've gotten beat. I just sit there in silence. He says, is it good? I say, come on, son, turn your hand over. He turns over queen, jack of diamonds, and I say, yep, that's good. This hand is completely my fault. A little dent into the profit here, sending me up only £440 or so for the night. All right, next up, I've got pocket 4s in the hijack. So excited to raise this hand up. I knock over my phone, my chips, everything is sprayed everywhere. I raise it on up to £15. The button makes the call. The small blind calls, and then the big blind puts in the squeeze, but it's only to £60, not a massive squeeze in a game like this. I make the call because I expect the 2 loose gooses behind to call, but naturally one by one they fold. Not what I was looking for at all. We go heads up to the flop. It is 9-3-3 rainbow. No 4 on the flop for me just yet. But when the c-bet comes in, it's only for £75. I think we have to call here in position and see what happens. I go ahead and make the call. The turn is an offsuit 5, and my opponent bets again, this time for £125. Do you ever just look at a guy and know that he doesn't have anything? I know by the way he bets that I've got the best hand, so I go ahead and make the call, planning to call it off on brick rivers, but unfortunately the river is an ace. My opponent looks delighted. He reaches for chips. He bets £250. I tell him that I knew I had the best hand on the turn and I've been drawn out on. I sigh, I muck, and then another player on the table says, did you have pocket 4s? I have no idea how he knew that, but that is absolutely incredible. Great read by the guy that wasn't in the hand. Yep, pocket 4s in the muck. All right, next up, I've got King Queen offsuit under the gun. I raise it on up to £12 because I didn't see that the straddle was on. Most players are straddling, and some players are sometimes straddling and sometimes not straddling. I announced 12 because I thought that I was just raising under the gun. I would have made it 15. But yeah, min raise under the gun from me. The cutoff is going to make the call. He's a nice fella from Ireland, and the straddle calls as well. We go 3 ways to the flop. It is King 7-3 rainbow. Nice start for me here with top pair, good kicker. It's also a very disconnected board, so it's really hard for me to be beat here. I decide to c-bet my hand. The cutoff makes the call, and the straddle gets out the way. The turn is another king to give me a set of kings. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go down that road again. Everyone got really upset last time I did that. I know it's 3 of a kind, okay? So we decide to bet our 3 of a kind again, and again my opponent makes the call. The river is a 7, double pairing the board. I've got full house here. I only lose to quads. I decide to keep on betting. There's no real bluffs that my opponent can have here. I bet out for £120 and I get snap called. I show my hand and he mucks his. He didn't call for the chop. He had a worse hand that couldn't beat mine. This is a very nice value from me, sending me up a couple of £100 for the night. Really happy with how this is going so far tonight. Having a lot of fun chatting with my table mates as well. On to our final hand of the night. I've got pocket 3s in the straddle. The cutoff has raised it on up and I decide to defend. I'm playing a bit loose and a bit splashy tonight, so I announce 20 and bet out £20 in the dark. I announce it very loudly and we see the flop come down Jack 10-3 with a flush draw. This is exactly what I was looking for. My opponent then throws out £35. A bit of confusion ensues, and then we realize that he didn't see my dark raise. The dealer makes it 40. I feel a bit silly now because I've just made a mess of this hand. I then put in the 3-bet. I make it £160 to go. Really nice spot for me to put in some extra money here. My opponent thinks for a few seconds and then makes the call. The turn is a king, queen 9 and ace queen get there, but still lots and lots of worse hands in my opponent's range. So I throw out a very chunky bet on the turn here. My opponent isn't going anywhere just yet. He rather quickly makes the call. This pot is escalating as we go to the river, which is the ace of hearts. Don't love that one bit. Straight's complete, flush is complete. But there are a lot of worse hands in my opponent's range. There are a lot of 2 pairs, a lot of hands like that that we can get called by. So my plan here is to bet really small and then fold versus a shove or a raise. I bet out for £200, trying to get a crying call from some 2 pairs. My opponent makes a very, very quick call. I announce set. He announces straight. Oh no, he turns over pocket queens, which is obviously good. Very disappointing for me that I've been drawn out on here by the runner, but I think both players have played the hand relatively standard. Dark bet aside from myself, I think it's a relatively standard hand. My opponent is very happy as he scoops in this very large pot, the largest pot of the night. It's also going to be my last hand of the night. I play for another 45 minutes or so, but nothing really happens. Lots of small pots that go the way of my opponents. In the end, I decide to rack up and head to the cashier, losing £872. Didn't play my best tonight, but I was kind of okay with that. I was just here to have fun and play a low stakes game, heading to the cashier down £872 for the night. Alright guys, we are done. I tell you what, we're not in Vegas anymore. When I left it was 47 degrees and it's minging in London. The weather's horrible. As for the session tonight, I had a lot of fun. I was playing quite loose and quite splashy and stuff, and I was okay with that. And then I lost that really silly cooler at the end, and then I was like, why am I playing like this? And I felt a bit guilty and a bit stupid. But it is what it is. I finished down £872 or something like that for the night. It's all good. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you could click the sub button, I'd be very grateful. Next time when we're playing a bigger game, we'll take it a bit more seriously. But yeah, thanks very much for watching. Take it easy.